All right, good morning, everyone. Please have a seat. Those of you who are here for item number 3, that's going to be the last item, and we'll take a brief break right before so that you can get all situated. Okay. Jonathan, you ready? All right, good morning, everyone. I hereby convene the February 10th, 2025 hearing of the Santa Barbara County Zoning Administrator. My name is Linda Liu, and I'll be the zoning administrator for today's hearing, and Mr. Jonathan Martin will be clerking. This hearing will be conducted under the provisions of the Ralph M. Brown Act, open meeting law, as well as the provisions of California planning law and the Santa Barbara County Code. We have 3 items on today's agenda. The clerk will read each item into the record, and I will announce any ex parte communications. I will then get comments from the case planner, followed by the applicant or the applicant's agent, and then I will get comments from the public. Anyone who wishes to testify should submit a speaker slip, and if testifying remotely, use the raise hand feature. All right, the first portion of our agenda is for general public comment. This period gives the public an opportunity to comment on matters that are not on today's agenda. Mr. Martin, do we have any requests to speak on this?
I have received no requests to speak so far for items not on today's agenda. I would like to give an opportunity for our attendees column. If anybody would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda, please raise your hand. Seeing none.
All right, we'll go ahead and close out that portion of the agenda. Mr. Martin, I think we're ready to proceed with item number 1.
Okay, item number 1, 24 TPM-00006. Brisa Encina tentative parcel map. Hearing on the request of Frank Thompson to consider case number 24 TPM-00006 and to determine the project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15315 and section 15301 of the state guidelines for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. I do not have any ex parte communications to announce on this. Mr. Kringle, are you ready to proceed?
I am ready, thank you.
All right, you're on.
Good morning, Ms. Liu. The project before you today is a request by the applicant Frank Thompson for the approval of a tentative parcel map to subdivide a 3.56 acre parcel into 2 parcels of 0.48 acres, that is proposed parcel 1, and 3.08 acres, proposed parcel 2. Proposed parcel 1 will have 2 vehicle access points, one via a 30-foot wide access easement over a private driveway off of Burton Mesa Boulevard on the western adjacent parcel, and 2 via proposed reserved variable width access easement over a private driveway across proposed parcel 2 that will also take access off Burton Mesa Boulevard. The proposed project is conditioned to require the recordation of the 30-foot access easement through the neighboring parcel prior to staff issuing the map clearance. Proposed parcel 2 will also have 2 vehicle access points, one via an on-site private driveway off Burton Mesa Boulevard, and 2 via an on-site private driveway off Via Donna Alley. Proposed parcel 2 is currently under construction for a new 49-unit multifamily supportive housing project, and proposed parcel 1 is anticipated to contain an approximately 4,000 square foot child care center. No development is proposed as part of this project. Both proposed parcels will continue to be served by the Mission Hills Community Services District for water and sewer, and by the Santa Barbara County Fire Department for fire protection services. The subject property is zoned retail commercial C2, and it is a 3.56 acre parcel identified as assessor parcel number 097111007, located on Burton Mesa Boulevard in the Lompoc area, 4th Supervisorial District. If you agree with staff's findings and analysis, we recommend you make the required findings for the project as specified in attachment A, including CEQA findings, determine the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15315 and 15301, and approve the project case number 24 TPM6, subject to the conditions of approval included as attachment B. And this concludes staff's presentation. I, as well as the applicant, are available for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kringle. Mr. Martin, do we have any speakers requests to speak online?
If anybody would like to make a public comment on item number 1, please raise your hand in the chat.
All right, Mr. Thompson, is the applicant, and he's here in person, Mr. Thompson. Do you-
Sorry, if you mind pressing the button on that right there.
Is that working? All right, better. Yes, Frank Thompson. I am working to develop this neighborhood. This particular parcel um, has a planned 49-unit low-income project. It also is supportive housing so that 25% or more of the units will be occupied by formerly homeless in the apartment complex adjacent. That complex includes 1 and 2 bedroom units, and we anticipate families with young children that could avail themselves then of the child care center, which is planned for this parcel. For a number of reasons, mostly financing, we needed to have a lot line between the apartment complex and the child care center. The child care center is limited to 49 students or enrollees. This is early childhood education, so the children are pretty young. Infant care through Head Start are the ages. Anyways, we're excited about it. The project is in cooperation with the Communify, which is formerly the Community Action Commission of Santa Barbara County, and they have extensive experience operating Head Start facilities. So this would be available to low-income families throughout the area, not just on the project site. So we're excited about that as well. So anyways, if there's any questions that you'd like to have answered, I'll be here to help and supplement the staff report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, before you leave, I do have another question for you. I assume you have read through the proposed conditions of approval that Mr. Kringle is proposing for this project?
Yes.
And are you in agreement with all those conditions?
Yes, we're ready to record those easements. It was just, we needed to get this tentative map conditionally approved, and then we'd create the easements and then record the map.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Mr. Kringle, I do have a couple of follow-up questions and one clarification regarding your staff report. Under your request to make the minimum lot line or minimum lot size requirements, can you tell me what the range of lots in this zone is for the rest of the parcels in the surrounding area?
Yeah, certainly, Ms. Lou. Currently there are 3 parcels in that C2 zoned area. The smallest of those parcels currently is a 0.36 acre parcel containing an auto mechanic shop. The neighboring parcel to the subject parcel is 2.34 acres. That's the one that contains a shopping center. And then the subject parcel is 3.56 acres. And then just to reiterate, this project will result in one parcel 0.48 acres and another parcel of 3.08 acres.
So this project, the resulting parcels would be within the range of what's already out there?
Correct.
All right. Thank you for that. Finally, in your staff report, I just have a question regarding your condition number 10 for the utilities being installed underground. In the staff report, in your analysis, you indicated all utilities would be located underground, but the conditions only cited the electrical utilities. Is that,
Correct. Yeah, sorry.
can you explain that? Why we're just focusing on electrical utilities for the conditions?
Yes, Ms. Lou. I reviewed some other conditions of approval for other tentative parcel maps, and I think I just had an error in that condition. I can certainly add all utilities, including electrical utilities, shall be undergrounded.
All right. Mr. Thompson, are you okay with that change to the condition?
Yeah, I just want to be clear though, on Burton Mesa, maybe not adjacent to this property, there's a really high voltage, I mean, a really large high voltage line that goes up and down Rucker Road. So of course, we wouldn't be responsible for that. It doesn't abut the property. But otherwise, there's some overhead telephone and internet lines now, which we intend to underground. And the electrical service for this property, we believe will come from the Via Donia Alley. So from that point, which is off this parcel again to our property would all be underground. Yes.
Mr. Kringle, is that going to comply with that analysis?
It will. I know the poll that Mr. Thompson is referring to, and I don't believe that that has any won't involve this project.
All right, great. Can you just, if you have that ready, can you read that revised condition into the record?
Certainly, Ms. Liu. So revised condition 10 will read as follows. All utilities, including electrical utilities, shall be underground.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions for you, and Mr. Martin indicated there are no other requests to speak. So I will go ahead and close out the hearing for this item and make the required findings for this project as specified in attachment A of the staff report, including the CEQA findings. Do determine that this project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15315 and 15301 as outlined in the notice of exemption included as attachment C of the staff report. And I approve this project case number 24 TPM 0006, subject to the conditions of approval included as attachment B of the staff report and as revised in today's hearing. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Kringle, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Martin, next item, please.
Okay, item number two, 23 CDH-00018, Porath New Single Family Dwelling. Here on the request of Mark Porath to consider the following case number 23 CDH-00018 and to determine the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15303 and section 15304 of the state guidelines for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. I do not have any ex parte communications to announce. Ms. Volpe, are you ready to proceed?
I am, thank you.
Aaron?
Good morning, Ms. Liu. My name is Kathleen Volpe, and I am the planner presenting case number 23 CDH 18, the Porath New SFD project. The subject parcel is 1.3 acres located at 4539 Via Huerto in the Eastern Glida Valley Community Plan and is zoned 2.5 EX1. This project is a request for a coastal development permit with hearing to allow for the demolition of an existing 2,114 square foot single family dwelling in a 512 square foot detached two-car garage and the construction of a new 4,326 square foot single family dwelling, a 704 square foot attached two-car garage, a 383 square foot second story attached accessory structure to be used as a home office, a detached 608 square foot cabana, and a 4.5 by 27 inch trash enclosure with 5 foot tall fencing. The project also includes a 60 by 14 foot pool, landscape and hardscape improvements, and the removal of 7 oak trees mitigated by the planting of 8 48-inch box oak trees. The project has been determined to be exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines sections 15303, which exempts construction and location of limited numbers of new small structures, such as a new single-family dwelling and accessory structures, and CEQA guidelines section 15304, which exempts minor alterations to land use, such as grading, landscape, and hardscape improvements. As proposed and as conditioned, the project is consistent with the county comprehensive plan, including the Eastern Glida Valley Community Plan, the Coastal Land Use Plan, and Article 2, the Coastal Zoning Ordinance. Staff recommends that you make the required findings or approval for this project, including CEQA findings. Determine the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guideline sections 15303, new construction and conversion of small structures, and section 15304, minor alterations of land, and approve the project subject to the conditions of approval included as attachment B. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Volpe. Mr. Ettinger, are you
Yes,
going to be
good morning.
speaking? Good morning. Do you have anything to add to Ms. Volpe's presentation at this time?
No, I don't. I thought the presentation was very concise and clear, and thank you for that. I'm available, however, to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. And have you had an opportunity to review the conditions of approval that Ms. Volpe is proposing on this project?
Yes, I have, and I'm okay with all of them.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ettinger. Mr. Martin, do we have any requests to speak on this item?
Yes, we have one hand up to speak on this item. Teresa Brady.
Hi, I was not planning on speaking on this item, but the fact that you're mentioning removing mature oaks, I just feel like somebody should say something. Mature oaks, 7 mature oaks, for one thing, oaks are much better resistant to fire whenever there's a chance of wildfire, which there is all through Southern California. You're better off with a mature live oak than to be putting in new plants. They also have a much better survival rate. They also protect us from global warming. And so I just think that, and it is a major change to remove mature trees of any number, and 7 is a lot. And I would ask you to I would ask the applicant to revise his plan to avoid those oaks. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brady. Mr. Martin, do we have any additional requests to speak?
We have no additional requests to speak for this item.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Brady, for that comment, because I did have follow-up questions for Ms. Volpe regarding these trees. So there were a couple of items in your staff report that I wanted clarification on. One was in your report, you indicated that these trees were previously cut to the ground by a prior owner. How do we verify that? Did we verify that?
Right, thanks, Ms. Liu. Well, we rely on specialists to evaluate the trees. So an arborist report was generated by a licensed arborist that evaluated the trees, and it was his determination that the original trees had been previously cut. The bushy look of these trees is typically a result of a trunk removal, resulting in the development of sucker or water sprout branches. These grow when a major limb or a trunk has been removed. Basically these branches all vie for resources, and so they grow outwards and have a more bushy look to the oak. It's kind of considered an oak cluster.
All right. And in the arborist report, I did see that, but they noted these trees are as in good health, even though they were poor in structure. In your analysis against those bioresources, how does that factor into whether or not they should be removed or we should retain them on the site?
Sure, Ms. Liu, so the Eastern Galena Valley policy, it identifies protected trees as defined as mature, native, naturalized, or roosting nesting trees that do not pose a threat to the health and safety. A mature tree is typically identified as a tree with a 6-inch diameter trunk measured from 4 feet from the ground, or DBH, and 6 feet or more in height. So the oaks that are proposed for removal do not have a main trunk 6 inches in diameter at 4 feet, and most are not over 6 feet. Additionally, according to the arborist report, as they continue to grow with no dominant stem in this multi-stem fashion, the oak as an oak cluster, they are at risk of creating like a large amount of dead wood and live and dead branches, and these can highly increase and fuel wildfire.
So that information is not in your at least I'm not seeing it in your bioresources analysis in your staff report. Is that something that should be added to the findings?
I can add it to the findings if it wasn't initially put in there. Are you speaking to the policy that I just spoke of?
Yes, about the 6-inch trunk, et cetera.
Yeah, so I can add those to the findings
Yes,
in my
please.
analysis. Okay.
Okay. And then lastly, in the policy again that you cited, it says that it should be replaced at a ratio of 10 for every tree removed. But I see you're removing 7, but you're only replacing with 8. How do you explain that?
Sure. Thanks, Ms. Liu. So the 10-to-1 mitigation is typically for 10 1-gallon trees. This replacement is proposed for 8 48-inch box trees. We have an established procedure and precedent to allow ratios of replacement trees of larger sizes at a smaller ratio, such as 48-inch boxes at a 1-to-1 ratio. These trees are a lot larger and mature than the 1-gallon trees and therefore can have a higher success rate.
And again, this portion about your practice of replacing it, the 10-to-1 only being the 1-inch, isn't in your staff report. Is that also something that should be put in the findings?
Yeah, I can add those to the findings, and I can also, yes, I can do that.
And are the 8 replacement trees going to be replaced on site?
Yes, there was a landscape plan that showed their replacement.
That's what I wanted to verify. All right, then that satisfies my concerns. I'll go ahead and close out the hearing for this item. Let's see. All right, so I'll go ahead and close out the hearing for this item and make the required findings for this project as specified in attachment A of the staff report, including the CEQA findings and as revised in today's hearing. Determine that this project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15303 and 15304, as outlined in the notice of exemption included as attachment C of the staff report. And I approve this project, case number 23 CDH 00018, subject to the conditions of approval included as attachment B of the staff report. Thank you very much, Ms. Volpe. Mr. Ettinger, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Martin, seeing how the next item, we have lots of speakers and lots of people in the room. We'll go ahead and take a 5-minute recess so that everybody can get situated. All right, thank you. Right? Because you can do it right now. Yeah. So she said to revise my findings, is that something? Like,
Oh,
can we
yeah,
revise my
yeah.
findings? Okay.
Yeah. What did you want the findings to say?
To incorporate the,
tend to, like, there was difference of ratios.
Oh, okay.
The February 10th, 2025 zoning administrator hearing. Mr. Martin, our next item, please.
Okay, we will be starting with item number 3, 16 CDH dash 00006. I'm sorry, 0000 dash 00016 DMF Fund LLC, Seaside 361 Naples. Hearing on the request of DMF Fund LLC to consider the following. Case number 16 CDH dash 0000 dash 00016. And to accept the addendum to the Santa Barbara Ranch Environmental Impact Report pursuant to the state guidelines for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act. There are no new significant environmental impacts as a result of the modification request. The original EIR identified significant effects on the environment in the following categories: aesthetics, visual resources, agricultural resources, biological resources. The addendum to the EIR and all documents may be revised at the Planning Development Department, 123 East Anapamu Street, Santa Barbara. The addendum to the EIR is also available for review at the Central Branch of the City of Santa Barbara Library, 40 East Anapamu Street, Santa Barbara.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Martin. I do not have any, actually, I did speak briefly to Mr. Schmuckel and Ms. Liu on this project briefly last week. All right, Mr. Schmuckel, are you ready to proceed?
Good morning, Miss Liu. Can we pull up the PowerPoint real quick? I'll get started.
There's not. Sorry, it's not pulling up in PowerPoint, so we might have to.
Okay, I'm connected here, so.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Liu. My name's Chris Schmuckel. I'm going to be presenting the DMF Fund Seaside Residence and Habitat Restoration Project today. So this project is located on the Naples Town Site in the Coastal Zone Appeals Jurisdiction in the Gaviota Coast Plain area. The project is located on 4 vacant legal lots with the Pacific Ocean to the south and the Union Pacific Railroad bordered on the north. The site is zoned Ag 2 110, and existing ag parcels are adjacent to the parcel on the east and the west. Some background on this project. The subject property was formerly a part of the Santa Barbara Ranch project, but has since been sold to a new property owner. The Santa Barbara Ranch project was a large-scale development project that proposed to develop 71 lots and was analyzed with an EIR. The Board of Supervisors approved the project on October 21st, 2008, and approved the project and EIR, which analyzed the construction of the single-family dwelling and the associated accessory structures on the property. To date, the Santa Barbara Ranch project has not been built out. In 2016, the current property owner submitted an application for the Seaside Residence project. And in 2019, a third party, not the property owner, disked the subject lot, which resulted in 0.13 acres of impact to native grasslands and 0.03 acres of impact to a coastal wetland on the property. In 2020, the property owner submitted an application for restoration of the disked areas. That project was approved in July 2021 and appealed by Surfrider, EDC, and the Gaviota Coast Conservancy. While under appeal, one of the issues identified discussed the restoration plan being analyzed cumulatively with the Seaside Residence project. So the restoration project was withdrawn and a new restoration plan was submitted that was processed in conjunction with the Seaside Residence project. And that's what we're bringing to the zoning administrator today. So the project came before the zoning administrator in May 2024, where numerous public comment letters were submitted. The applicant asked to continue the hearing to review the letters, and the project was continued again on July 15th and August 5th. So this project proposes to construct a new 6,500 square foot single-family residence with a 1,000 square foot attached garage, a 2,000 square foot barn, and an 800 square foot guest house. Approximately 800 cubic yards of cut and 800 cubic yards of fill is proposed. The project includes offers to dedicate easements, including a lateral trail easement, a floating blufftop easement to serve the future development of the California Coastal Trail, and a lateral beach access easement to allow public access along the beach. The project also includes open space deed restrictions on 8.35 acres of the lot to support conservation and 3.56 acres to support small-scale agriculture. No future structures will be allowed to be constructed in these areas. Finally, the project proposes a voluntary lot merger to merge the 4 legal lots into 1 lot to extinguish the future development rights on the other lots. Since the project was last before the ZA, the applicant reviewed and responded to the public comment letter. In response to issues brought up regarding sea level rise, the applicant reviewed a new model called the Cosmos model from the U.S. Geological Survey. This model confirmed that the sea level rise analysis found that the development envelope will not be impacted by the future sea level rise, even under the conservative estimates. The applicant did revise the floating easement width, further increasing its size to ensure that it can accommodate the California Coastal Trail, even using this conservative model. In addition, a new aquatic resource delineation was completed, dated September 2024, and this report provided updated and expanded wetland information and confirmed that the proposed project will have no direct impacts to wetlands. This slide shows the 2.24 acre development envelope, the offer to dedicate trail easements, and the open space deed restricted areas. The project will be served by a new driveway included within the development envelope that serves the proposed residence. The proposed development envelope and structures and driveway are clustered in the northern portion of the site in dark green and shown on this slide. The lighter green area identifies the 8.35 acre open space conservation deed restricted area that will be preserved as open space. The hatched area identifies the 3.56 acre agricultural deed restricted area where low intensity agricultural use is proposed. The areas proposed for trail easement offers to dedicate are shown in 3 locations. The first is a lateral trail easement along the entire length of the seaside lot south of the Union Pacific Railroad. There's also a floating trail easement shown in brown where the future Bluff-Top Trail could be developed. And there's a lateral easement along the beach as measured from the base of the bluff to the mean high tide line. The proposed single-family dwellings elevation are shown on this slide. The single-family dwelling is limited to a maximum height of 15 feet above finished grade. The proposed guest house and barn elevations are shown on this slide. The accessory structures are also limited to a maximum height of 15 feet. The habitat restoration portion of the project proposes to restore 0.49 acres of native grassland and 0.13 acres of wetland habitat. This proposed restoration is greater than the restoration ratios required by the Gaviota Coast Plan for the impacted areas. So this site plan shows the overall location of the restoration areas. These areas were chosen adjacent to existing habitat to expand the overall habitat on each site for each habitat type. The proposed native grassland restoration area is shown in the light green circles, and the proposed wetland restoration area is shown by the dark blue circle. Mapped native grasslands are shown in green, and wetlands were shown in light blue. The Santa Barbara Ranch EIR analyzed impacts on the subject lot known as Lot 66. Staff prepared an initial study to review potential project impacts on the environment and reviewed the project against the previously certified Santa Barbara Ranch EIR. State CEQA Guidelines Section 15164 describes that the lead agency for a project can prepare an addendum if some changes or additions are necessary, but none of the conditions described in Section 15162 calling for preparation of a subsequent EIR have occurred. CEQA Guidelines Section 15162 explains that when an EIR has been certified, no subsequent EIR shall be prepared for a project unless the lead agency determines on the basis of substantial evidence that there would be new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant effects, or that the new information shows that mitigation measures or alternatives that were found not to be feasible are now feasible, or were not previously considered would not be feasible, and would substantially reduce one or more significant impact, but the applicant declined to adopt them. So for this project, the project did not meet any of the criteria described in Section 15162, and staff prepared an addendum for the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR for this project. The addendum describes how the impacts to the proposed project were analyzed under the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR and updates the relevant mitigation measures to be applicable to one lot versus the previously approved 71 lots. As discussed in detail in the addendum, the proposed single-family home, accessory structures, and restoration will not result in new significant effects, would not result in a new significant effect as compared to the 71 homes analyzed in the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR. There have not been new substantial changes resulting in new significant effects or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant effects, and all impacts associated with the project under the current circumstances will be equal or less than the impacts analyzed under the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR. So this project is also consistent with the Article 2 Coastal Zoning Ordinance, the Coastal Land Use Plan, and the Gaviota Coast Plan. And the staff report highlights those policy consistency analysis for each of the policies. So in summary, the proposed project is located on a lot for which prior approvals for development of a 25-foot tall residential structures were granted, and for which an EIR was certified. The proposed project is for a 15-foot tall residential structure and includes 3 offers to dedicate public access easements and deed restrictions on an 8.35 acre open space conservation and 3.56 acre open space agricultural area. The environmental review found equal or lesser impacts as compared to the prior approvals, and the project is consistent with all applicable policy and ordinance requirements. So staff recommends that you make the required findings for approval as specified in attachment A of the staff report, including the CEQA findings. Consider the CEQA addendum for the previously adopted EIR and determine that as reflected in the findings, no subsequent EIR or negative declaration shall be prepared. Approve the Seaside Residence Project subject to the conditions of approval, and approve the Habitat Restoration Project subject to the conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Schmuckel. Ms. Winecki, you're the project or online? Hi. Let's go. All right. Mr. Schmuckel, why don't you introduce who is actually gonna be the speaker for the applicant team?
Sure, Ms. Liu, I believe Beth Collins is going to start off the presentation. She's the attorney for the applicant, and then Ms. Winecki is also available online. She's been the agent for the project and has a lot of great information. And we also have Ms. Klug, who's the biologist for the project here as well.
Great. All right, Ms. Collins, you're on.
Hello, good morning, Zoning Administrator Liu. I'm Beth Collins. Do you have our PowerPoint? Yeah. Just wait for that to get pulled up. There you go. So the first slide's our project team. We have me here, April's on Zoom, and Amber Garrity, her colleagues here, Tamara Klug. We have our architect team and our engineer team on Zoom. So we're prepared to answer any questions you may have. Thank you to staff. Thank you for all the time and energy you've put into analyzing this project over the years. And I'll just hit a few things since they covered a lot very well in their presentation. So next slide. The history here. We have an approved project by the county with 71 lots, but most important, we have a certified EIR. That EIR was litigated and upheld. That project was never built, but the county is still relying on that EIR to analyze the impacts of this project, which is just a small piece of that larger project. More recently, we had the disking by a third party without my client's permission. We have a habitat restoration plan that was approved by you, zoning administrator, back in 2021. Can you believe that long ago? The appeal, however, raised a lot of questions about the residential project. And so in response, we did put the applications together so that the issues could be dealt with together. Then we were set for hearing back almost a year ago, unbelievable. 2024, we had a lot of significant comments received right before the hearing. So we asked for continuance. We did do additional technical analysis that did lead to some project modifications that Mr. Schmuckel just covered. So quickly to the next slide. The residential project, really important here, we have 4 legal lots and it's going to 1 lot. 14-acre lot. And there's a 2-acre about development envelope that's being proposed on that 1 lot. We're offering a number of project design features and other public benefits associated with this project. You heard some of the highlights, OTDs for lateral beach access and other trails. We have open space dedications, deed restricted open space, conservation areas and ag open space areas, pretty much everywhere where the development is not occurring, the development of the residents, everything else is being preserved or dedicated on this site. There are also extensive bluff setbacks. We've also, after running the model, expanded the trail easement areas to allow for, in case there is bluff erosion in the future, the trail will be able to be located or relocated. So that's the residential project. And then the next slide is the restoration. Again, not our disking, but a third party disked. We are proposing to mitigate at ratios that are higher than those in the Gaviota Coast Plan. We're monitoring for 5 years with performance criteria, and then also checking again at 7 years. So now to environmental review. Staff hit most of this. Yes, thank you. So the staff is using the 2008 EIR, which was certified by the county and upheld by the Superior Court. There is an addendum that's been prepared that demonstrates there's less site disturbance, reduced height as compared to the prior EIR, more open space protection. Obviously, we have the also these offers to dedicate. We avoid wetlands, sensitive resources, and meet all our buffer requirements and increase bluff setbacks. So if you go to the next slide, and this is tricky because of this kind of bowling alley shaped lot, but the bottom is the ocean, and then the top, you can see the railroad. So the original approved home site is on the left there, the farthest left. Our proposed home site is on the right. So you can see we moved it back away from the bluff, closer to the railroad. It's clustered. This all complies with Gaviota Coast Plan policies. We also reduced the development envelope from 3.9 acres to 2.25. Next slide. Also, you'll see that there's open space easements. Pretty much everything that's not in that residential development, as I said, is in open space conservation. The open space conservation area expanded, you'll see, from 5.5 acres to 8.35. And then the ag conservation area is 5 acres to 3.56. So that's about it. That's we wanted to quickly give you some highlights. We're here if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Collins. I'm not sure if the biologist or anybody has any additional comments you want to make regarding the really the habitat restoration.
No, I'm just here to answer questions, Ms. Lou.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go to the speaker slips next. There are a bunch of them. So I will make. Okay, we're going to go through the 5 online first, and Mr. Martin will keep track and make sure that they are held to their 3-minute max speaking time. All right, Mr. Martin, first speaker.
First speaker, we have Jesse Acosta.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful. So I guess I have a long history with this area. I grew up in Goleta and have spent thousands of hours along that coastline. Little fun side note. So for my bio class, I use in order to remember the kingdom, phylum, class, ordered, family, genus, species. It was anchored in the idea that kids play cool on fun green surf. Stupid little anagram, but just there's a great connection that I have with this place. I was really sad to see the Bakar go in and kind of desecrate that whole zone. But I understand the tension that's present when it comes to open space and ranching specifically. It's a very difficult business, and we need to afford to have these open spaces maintained. When it comes to specifically Naples and that whole area, I'm not familiar. I'm just curious if in the past the consideration's been made for the harbor seal rookery that's present down along those cliffs and just the potential disturbance of development, night lights for sea birds, etc. And I think another issue that I have is I hear the applicant taking great lengths to allow for access and increase access, in the future. And I guess that's some of the concern in a regard, not to be exclusive, but sometimes too much access will disturb these wild places. And seeing that Naples does house, wild species along its coast, foxes and coyotes, and as I said earlier, hundreds and hundreds of harbor seals that, sleep there every night. I've disturbed them sadly in the morning. at 5:30 when I was walking out to go surf. And so just the cumulative effects of night lights and, if this is, 7,000 square foot of development for one home, multiplying by that, this is going to be the flagship home. I'm assuming that any future development would take this development as a lead. You just multiply that under square roof by whatever those numbers of lots there are, and you have acres that are just under roof now, and just concerned that the cumulative effects that have been considered. And just in terms of, what the water quality issues that would be coming as a runoff, from maybe fertilizer, pets, and just the disturbance again to these wild places. And so sadly, I'm not fully familiar with what's been done for the work in the EIR. I'm sure it's been extensive. I just wanted to consider if NOAA has been brought into the loop to see if there's any sort of way to mitigate the disturbance.
Mr. Acosta?
Yeah.
You need to wrap it up. You're 3 minutes up.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, again, considering too much access being an actual disturbance, so allowing for too many trails to be access disturbance, and just the cumulative effects of all the houses along this coast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, our next speaker, please.
Okay, we'll move on to Teresa Brady.
Ms. Brady? You have 3 minutes.
Oh, hi. I didn't realize I had my hands up, but it's okay. I did intend to speak on this. I want to echo that concept that even though it's only one house, they're relying on a plan that you approved for 71. It could lead to other as a precedent that they can now say, oh, well, you developed one. And also, I understand that there are nesting white-tailed kites, and they are a rare species. I believe has some endangered species protection. And there's a bumblebee that also has protected status. And I just, the more there is disturbance, the more likely birds like the kite will feel they can't nest there. They're rare for a reason, and they're nesting there for a reason because it is so isolated. And I also feel I'm glad that the first speaker talked about the seals needing the rookery and the quiet and the lack of light, because there are only so many places that seals and kites can still thrive. So I hope that you will consider the value of this pristine coast that you have above the monetary value of letting somebody put a home there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brady. Mr. Martin, our next speaker, please.
Okay, our next speaker will be Susan Stirs.
Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Stirs, Santa Barbara County resident. My first item is I'd just like to bring up that the EIR was approved back in 2008, and I'm just wondering about the time period of validity for that EIR. You know, a lot of things have changed over 16 years. I'm wondering if that is still valid. But I would like to ask that you consider the benefits of denying the coastal development permit application to the community, all travelers through the Gaviota area, and the wildlife. Although the application is for one dwelling, this decision, could set precedent for the approval of future projects that could drastically alter the landscape of the pristine Gaviota corridor. Can you think of any other areas with the same natural beauty along the coast in Central and Southern California? It's one of a kind now. I ask that you consider the benefit this undeveloped land has to all who drive through this area along Highway 101. I experience the feeling of awe, wonder, and happiness when looking out to the ocean and the islands, or up along the rolling hills to the mountains with the view unobstructed from houses and landscaping. This view and these feelings are currently shared by all who get to experience this undeveloped land in their own way. It is not exclusive to the wealthy people who are able to afford to build houses on this beautiful land. Thank you for your consideration of the many benefits to leaving this land undeveloped, which can be accomplished by denying the coastal development permit application. Thank you for your time and the work that you do.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sturts. Mr. Martin, next speaker.
Okay, next speaker, Nancy Vos. Sorry if I mispronounced that name.
Hello, good morning. My name is Nancy Avos, and I am the Assistant Director with the Santa Barbara County Action Network, SBCAN, also a Santa Barbara County resident. And first and foremost, we appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment on this. We have been following this issue with a commitment to ensure that Naples remains untouched by development. The proposed development would undoubtedly impact our environment and our fully protected species. We should preserve our open spaces and areas for the public to enjoy, and I appreciate all the previous speakers noting that allowing this development would set a precedent for other lots to be developed. This landscape is highly important to Santa Barbara County residents. Let's please protect our stunning Gaviota coast. Please deny this permit application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vos. Mr. Martin, next speaker.
Okay, our next speaker will be Sue Kay. Sue, can you hear us? Okay, we'll see if she can get her microphone to work. We'll go on to our next speaker, Lori Donovan.
Hello, this is Lori Donovan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm also a Santa Barbara County resident, and I'm very familiar with this land. I've spent a whole lot of time down there. I can tell you that the unpermitted disking was, from what I have observed, way more than 0.13 acres. It covered almost the entire parcel when it was done. I was actually present on the land when the disking was happening, and I asked them to please stop. I begged them to please stop, and they would not. What I understand is that we've been told through this meeting that it was done by a third party. I have the information of who was actually doing the disking, and the disking not only happened on this particular parcel, but all the parcels around it and also on the inland side of the highway. It destroyed over 300 acres of native grasslands and habitat for many, many wild animals. And it's taken years for it to start to come back. When it started to come back, the problem is when you disc the seedbed under, weeds are what come back pervasively. And we had mustard in areas that was growing up to 8 or 9 feet high that was as thick as a jungle you couldn't get through. My concern is if this was brought to the owner's attention and they've talked about doing their restoration, it's been many years. Why have they not even started to restore the land? And if they were concerned, I would think in order to get their permit passed, if they were committed to restoring the land, that they would have done this a long time ago to show their stewardship to the land, but nothing has been done. Also, I have a concern about the water availability. From what I understand, this whole bluff area was in farming at one point in time. And at this point, there's very little water available. There's very little water available even for wildlife. And so if there were a house to be built and disruption of the natural ecosystem there, where are these animals going to go to get fresh water? I would concur with everybody else as far as there would be too much access, too many people coming across the property. And the cumulative effect of having 71 lots developed would absolutely ruin the beauty and the natural space that we have available.
All
And
right,
I'm going to
Lori,
echo one more time.
We've actually gone over your 3 minutes, so if you wouldn't mind wrapping it up, please.
Okay, anyway, I will just end by saying, please deny this permit application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Donovan. Mr. Martin, next speaker, please.
Okay, our next speaker, we can try and go back to Nancy Avos, if you got your microphone. Oh, I'm sorry, Sue K.
Sue?
Like she's still having issues.
All right, Mr. Martin, next
Welcome,
speaker.
our next speaker, Aaron Howard. Aaron Howard. Okay, we can go to our next speaker, Roxy Jackson. Gain. Roxy, if you can hear us. Okay, we'll go to our next speaker, Lily Polar.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Lily Paler, and I am a UCSB student, and I'm also a Santa Barbara local. And Naples area has been my sanctuary since high school. It's been a place where I found peace, reconnected with nature, and experienced the beauty of Santa Barbara. Its sweeping fields, wildlife, and ocean views make it a treasure unlike any other. Knowing it could be lost to development is heartbreaking. This land is also home to rare species like the white-tailed kite, and its natural wonder inspires all who visit. I've always dreamed of one day bringing my own children here to share in the magic of this land. But if it's developed, that magic is gone forever. We must come together to protect Naples, not for ourselves, but for generations to come, and for the plants and animals that rely on this irreplaceable habitat. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to our next speaker, Candace Manigan.
Hi, good morning. My name is Candice Menigan. I'm the Executive Director of Coastal Ranches Conservancy. We are a nonprofit that protects, restores, and promotes education along the Gaviota Coast. And we're voicing our concerns about this application, mostly because the Gaviota Coast is a biodiversity hotspot of global importance. And frankly, land use change is the #1 threat to biodiversity conservation. And while we recognize the applicant's strides to try and protect more open space and agricultural resources, there are still ongoing concerns. Certainly, Assembly Bill 1889 was passed last year. That was the Room to Roam Act. And essentially, Santa Barbara County is meant to assess wildlife connectivity, habitat connectivity, and wildlife corridors in the county. And while this is a application for one development, as many other speakers have highlighted, it sets a precedent. And we do need to address the cumulative impacts that these developments are having on our wildlife. There are more and more articles being published in science and science journals indicating that recreational use is having dire impacts on wildlife usage. And while we appreciate the beauty of the Gaviota Coast and the wildness and of its habitat and its species, you know, the access concerns on site and how that will impact mountain lion usage, black bears, mule deer on the landscape needs to be considered. So I think this application really highlights a bigger issue for the county as a whole around wildlife connectivity. But you know, the staff said that everything was consistent with the Gaviota Coast Plan. You know, we've also heard that things are inconsistent with habitat policies with regards to white-tailed kite. And I would like the staff to speak to that issue if possible. And then also just highlighting that the California Ecosystem Protection Act of 2023 requires that we protect 30% of California's unique biodiversity and vegetation types. And the county really needs to look at these individual applications and the cumulative impacts of all these individual applications on those biodiversity targets for our vegetation types within the county. And this application, yet again, is just highlighting that need that the county has to look at that. So it's not to single out one applicant, but certainly that
So
this
sorry,
application
you had,
highlighting
sorry,
these larger issues.
Candace, we had 3 minutes for your public comment, so if you wouldn't mind wrapping it up, please.
I am done. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to our last online speaker. I believe Roxy Jackson has returned to the online chat.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet. My name's Roxy and I grew up in Santa Barbara and I've recently moved back here, and my whole life Naples has been a really special space for me. And I just want to reemphasize a lot of the points that everyone else has already made, that the Naples Bluffs comprise a large area of one of the last remaining stretches of publicly accessible undeveloped coastline in Southern California. And this land acts as a refuge for hundreds of species that reside here. And even building one house will impact that. And it's hard to gauge the actual ways in which it'll impact all the species that reside here, including the endangered red-legged frog and the fully protected white-tailed kite. I've personally seen a white-tailed kite here, and it was a really cool thing to see, just because I love birds, and I don't see how a proposed development from 2008 or proposed approval can still be in effect when the population of white-tailed kites has declined significantly in those past 16 years. And I just feel like the reason why the Naples Bluffs are so beautiful and incredible is because of the limited access to it and the way that the environment is has all this open space to thrive. I saw an old poster about protecting and preventing development on this stretch of land, and it said it said to the privileged few who know and love Naples, and I think that really emphasizes why it is the way it is and why it's such an incredible space, is because there's just so few people that actually are interacting with that land, and the development of 72 properties even one property would significantly impact this space and would lead to the development of further properties. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson-Gain. Right now, we're going to move to the in-person speakers. So the first speaker up is Stephanie Roberson.
And I'd just like to make an announcement that we will go back to the online speakers. If you would like to still speak and you are in the attendees column, please raise your hand. Don't leave that chat, because we were going to go back to the online speakers once we're done with the in-person.
Before you start, Ms. Roberson, the next speaker following you would be Ken Pelly, if you want to get ready. All right, you're on.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Roberson, and I am the chair of the Santa Barbara chapter of Surfrider. The development of the property known as Lot 66 of the Santa Barbara Ranch has been an issue that Surfrider has long opposed. We do not stand alone in this opposition.
Yeah.
Please.
Last year, the California Coastal Commission staff, in a rare move, wrote a letter to the zoning administration citing concerns that the proposed restoration plan in Seaside Residence and the county's staff analysis thereof were inconsistent with the policies of the Gaviota Coastal Plan. Among those issues, I would like to cite here the proposed restoration plan in Seaside Residence do not identify, restore, or provide mitigation for the full extent of environmentally sensitive habitat on the property, which among other things serves as white-tailed kite foraging habitat and habitat for other species of special status. The wetland delineation used for the restoration plan in Seaside Residence was conducted during a historic drought period. There is wetland on the habitat property, which can only be seen when we have ordinary rainfall. This has not been taken into account in any reporting that I have seen. Since last spring, there has been the discovery of the California bumblebee, a G3 species which triggers ESHA per the GCP policy NS4. This now adds to the list of federal and state-listed threatened, endangered, and candidate species or species of special concern, such as the grasshopper sparrow, the northern harrier, the burrowing owl, the California horned lark, mountain lion, lark sparrow, and western meadowlark, just to name a few. This environmentally sensitive habitat is a unique space along our California coast. It deserves to be protected from development. This is a space that is unique along the California coastline. Santa Barbara, indeed California, deserves to have spaces such as Naples, which remain undeveloped and allow natural habitats to flourish with an abundance of wildlife, lest we lose it altogether. We ask that you help us keep Naples from looking like the rest of the Southern California coastline, entrenched with housing that destroys sensitive habitats and eliminates the wildlife that lives in our coastal zones. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ken Paley, to be followed by Callian Sheehy.
Lou and staff of the planning department, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ken Paley. I am on the executive committee of Surfrider Foundation, although these comments reflect mine. Our legal representative with EDC will give extremely more detailed information. I'm a resident of what they call the unincorporated area, more locally called Nolita. In view of the fact that Naples is perhaps the most beautiful jewel in the crown of the California coast that the Gaviota Coast region represents, with incomparable views, public access, and rare wildlife habitat, its preservation in as pristine and undeveloped state as possible is of the highest importance. Any development there, such as the proposed DMF project, will set a very dangerous precedent for the entire Gaviota Coast. In addition, this DMF project is planned within protected ESHA, including white-tailed kite, many other raptors, red-legged frogs, and other sensitive or endangered plants and animals. They also include the sensitive and rare wetlands, a variety of habitat that is endangered throughout California. I hope I need not remind you that the 2004 National Park Service Gaviota Park feasibility study concluded the natural and cultural resources of the area are nationally significant, meeting all 4 of the National Park Service criteria for national significance. In addition, it is significant that the proposed development area was illegally disked several years ago and has yet to get an approved remediation plan in place, much less implemented. Can we really trust this developer to not commit further violations of county land use policy? In fact, I urge you to demand that the disking violation be totally remediated prior to any further processing of the development application, as I believe county regulations require. Why the zoning administrator decided to process both issues simultaneously is difficult to fathom. In any event, thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paley. Callian Sheehy, to be followed by Matthew Ampa.
Good morning, Madam Administrator. I'm Callian Sheehy, here on behalf of UCSB's Environmental Law Club. Naples is Gaviota's crown jewel. Allowing development would set a precedent, opening the door to more projects. You should deny DMF's permit requests and reject its EIR addendum. As submitted to the record by the Environmental Defense Center, and as you've heard, at least 16 rare wildlife species call Naples home, including protected bumblebees and the white-tailed kite. Building on these findings, a report by UC Irvine faculty finds that kite nesting populations are declining, making protection more urgent. This site likely qualifies as a permanently protected, environmentally sensitive habitat area under the Gaviota Coast Plan, and as such, the project cannot move forward. Additionally, as contained in the record, DMF ignored the Coastal Commission's requirement to conduct a wetland delineation during or immediately after the rainy season. DMF did this in July 2024, the hottest month on record in this area, according to multiple sources, including the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The Gaviota Coast Plan and Local Coastal Plan include wetland safeguards, such as a 100-foot setback. DMF's proposal to install septic leach fields presents substantial risk of runoff. This improper assessment cannot support this project. As one of Southern California's last unspoiled coastal landscapes, we must protect the Gaviota Coast today and tomorrow. I understand the pressure, Madam Administrator, to move forward with this project, maybe facing potential litigation if you don't. But community members that are unaffiliated with this project want you to take a stand. Protect these species, their habitats, and the wetlands. Deny DMF's permit requests. Reject its EIR addendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheehy. Next speaker, Matthew Compa, to be followed by Everett Lipman.
Good morning, Madam Administrator, staff, members of the public. My name is Matthew Campa. I am the founder and attorney advisor to the UCSB Environmental Law Club, here today to urge the administrator to deny DMF's proposed seaside residence development. There are multiple reasons why this project should not go forward, but I will focus on the failure to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act and the direct inconsistencies with the Gaviota Coast Plan. This project relies on an addendum to a nearly 2-decade-old 2008 EIR to satisfy its CEQA obligations. However, the CEQA guidelines prohibit the use of an addendum when new information presents new conditions and significant effects that were not previously analyzed. And that's exactly what we have here. In July of 2024, the director of UCSB's Cheadle Center for Biodiversity and Ecological Restoration undertook a survey that identified the California bumblebee within flight distance from Lot 66. The California bumblebee is classified as a G3 vulnerable species, which under the Gaviota Coastal Plan Policy NS-4 qualifies as a rare species, the presence of which renders the area as ESHA. Despite this fact, there is zero acknowledgement in the addendum or the EIR of the presence of the California bumblebee ESHA. There is no analysis of the California bumblebee population size, density, or behavioral habits. And most importantly, there is no analysis of how the specific actions of this project may distinctly impact the California bumblebee population at Naples. These are critical questions that must be answered in an environmental review document in order for decision makers and the public to be fully informed. Put simply, the guiding ethos of CEQA, that decision makers and project designers be informed that we look before we jump, cannot be achieved absent renewed review. The attempts to rectify this shortcoming with after-the-fact mitigation that only applies to crotch and western bumblebee does not solve the problem. I wanted to quickly conclude by detailing how others have that Gaviota truly represents one of the last remaining ecosystems of California grassland and wetlands that is important not only as an ecological hotspot, that is deeply valued by this community as a recreational opportunity. And I thank the administrator for taking these things into consideration, and I urge you to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Everett Lipman, to be followed by Deanne Plaster.
I have my picture, please. Thanks. I'm Everett Lipman. I'm here with Surfrider Foundation. And I'd like to ask that when you consider this application, you think carefully about wildfire risk, which was not adequately addressed in the CEQA addendum. And as you can see on this map from the state, the project area is in a zone that has the state's highest possible wildfire rating for risk. And although the application does discuss fire risk, that entire analysis is restricted to isolated structure fire. And as those of us who've lived around here for a while know, the real risk here is wildfire, of which we've had more than a dozen in the last 20 years. So as just an example of how the analysis is inadequate, the plan calls for 10,000 gallons of water to be reserved for firefighting. And this is to meet the requirement from the NFPA in the fire department letter. But the the rated flow rate is 500 gallons per minute. And so that only works out to be about 20 minutes of water for firefighting. And that's fine for a flare up on the kitchen stove, but it is not fine for a Santa Barbara wildfire. And so in the event of a wildfire between Naples and Western Goleta, if you have a development out there, precious ground-based and airborne resources are going to be diverted if a rescue becomes necessary. And those resources will be lost to defending the city of Goleta. And furthermore, if the firefighters get out there and they have only 20 minutes of water, their lives will be at risk. So finally, I'd like to point out that also on the other side of this coin, according to CAL FIRE, 95% of wildfires in the state are started by people. And as two examples, in 2007, the Zaca fire was started by sparks from a pipe repair on private property. That cost $177 million to fight that fire in today's money, which makes the $4,600 wildfire mitigation fee in the plan kind of sound silly. 2 years later, the Jesucita fire was started by sparks from a brush cutter. And you can imagine that if you have a huge estate out there, there are going to be people doing pipe repairs and brush cutting all the time. So in summary, wildfire puts us all at risk, and this development would be unacceptable, and so it should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deanne Plaster, to be followed by Janet Coet.
Administrator Liu, my name is Dean Plaister, and I'm a member of the Executive Committee of Surfrider Foundation Santa Barbara Chapter. As you have heard and read over and over, Naples is a location near and dear to many in this community. I have been there countless times to surf or simply to enjoy its nature and expansive views. The Chumash, who also enjoyed Naples long ago, left their traces now buried under the land. I worry about the future disturbances of those traces. The place is still home to a myriad of animals and insects that aren't found in a lot of other places. These animals get around the Naples property. They use areas native to them pretty thoroughly, and just because they haven't been recorded on this or that square foot of property doesn't mean they wouldn't ever want or need to go there. By nature, wild animals avoid people. If you develop a place that was once open and uninhabited, the animals will move away and their usable habitat will shrink. In a similar way, once you allow building in an area near sensitive habitat, the entire feel of that area changes for humans as well, both in the openness of the landscape vistas and the impact on one's sense of escaping the urban suburban environment. These are things that, once changed, cannot be reobtained. For the birds, mammals, and bugs whose world grows smaller every day, and for people who find less and less nature and yet need it more and more, and out of respect for the remnants of Chumash culture still underground there, I implore you to deny this project and give this land more time to be as it has been, more time to hope for the kind of conservation purchase that has saved other such places on the Gaviota Coast. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Janet Cohen, to be followed by Lori Ann Velez.
Hello, I'm Janet Coed, and I'm a resident of Santa Barbara since 1969. I've been following the Naples development for about 18 years now, and I just felt like I had to show up. I don't have a whole lot of new things to say, except that I'm so grateful for the testimony here from everybody who's spoken, the technical experts, as well as the heartfelt speakers. I'm so grateful that there's young people here to carry on the work that we've been doing for probably 20 years now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lori Ann Velez, to be followed by Allison Royce.
Haku, each antik. That is Chumash. Hello, hello, my friends. Choshnahit means good morning in Chumash. So I'm a direct descendant from that area, Fuyaimu and Mikyu. My lineage goes back about since 1803. And today I'm just going to read you a poem that my grandfather had written in 2002 about Mikyu and Kuyamu. Whom do I hear on this lonely night that calls out with a distant cry? A soul, a spirit within the wind? Who was the last to die? A voice speaks low. Where have they gone? What was the reason why? Who do they reap from a culture gone? For they do not sleep, these restless souls. The Spirit sends a newborn seed of the children born again. You cannot take away what was the people of a way of life, a man, a woman, a boy, a girl, a family way of strife. What do you cast into the wind? The greed, the hurt, the Mother Earth, a never-ending sin. So do you reap this lonely day? Can you not hear the words I say? For you too shall walk on a cold, lonely night. Whispers in the wind. So I'd like to thank you very much. I'm very much in opposition of this development. I feel that there has to be a new EIR report done. 2008 is very old. Within this EIR report, there should be a historical context report with it, an archaeological report, very much an extended phase 1 with this EIR report needs to be done. And Naples is very dear to everybody's heart in Santa Barbara County, especially us Chumash people, you know, and I feel it definitely needs to be saved and preservation in place for future generations to come. So I have worked with Stantec as a cultural resource auditor. Very much know their unethical behaviors within Native American monitors, not paying us 6 months.
Thank you very much, Ms. Velez. Your time is up. Thank you.
Hakinash, thank you.
Thank you. Allison Royce, to be followed by Anna Citron.
Hi, I'm a longtime Santa Barbara resident, and I just wanted to say that I strongly oppose this build. I feel like it's going to set precedent for future builds, and just looking, I'm 46 years old now, and I remember when we used to have a stoplight in Santa Barbara, and the amount of traffic that has gone through, and it's the last breath of fresh air that you actually get to see. It's sacred, holy land, like honored by the Chumash. And I definitely feel that there needs to be an archaeological report before any kind of build. I know that when rains happen, that artifacts show up from the runoff. So I think that there's definitely more to look at, and it's going to set a precedent for future builds. The fires that happen, there's definitely not enough water. There's not an evacuation route even like to get out of Santa Barbara at this point because of all the traffic that we have going on. I think that it needs to be definitely looked at, and it's a sacred place. It's a special place. When you leave Santa Barbara, you look over like Point Conception and you get the breath of fresh air. You see the sunsets, you see the open fields. We don't have that anymore. We don't have that anywhere on this coast, except now where the fires are now, where it burned through Malibu. So I strongly oppose this. Please, please, please get a new report, get an archaeological report, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Citron, to be followed by Mary Bird.
Would you please reset the timer? Thank you. Good morning, Zoning Administrator Liu. I'm Anna Citron, Legal and Policy Director for the Gaviota Coast Conservancy. You've heard a lot of passionate testimony here today. There are also hundreds of comments in your written file. But you're probably wondering, do you have the legal basis to deny this project? And we would say that not only do you have the legal basis to deny this project, you lack a legal basis to approve this project. And there are a couple of things I want to set straight for the record. You've heard that final approvals were granted for the Santa Barbara Ranch project and that the certified EIR was litigated and upheld. That is not exactly correct. When the Santa Barbara Ranch project was approved by a lame duck board of supervisors, almost immediately thereafter, the project began to be unwound. The developer themselves rescinded their application for coastal development. They bifurcated the project out of fear that the Coastal Commission would delay or deny the entire project. So they divided it into the coastal project, the inland project. Only the inland project proceeded. The litigation that challenged the EIR, the coastal part of that was stayed. The judge never reached the merits of the coastal approvals. Because it was withdrawn, the Coastal Commission never received a notice of final action. They would have had to approve an LCP amendment as well as hear any approvals. That's important because the Coastal Commission, they do their CEQA equivalent review. They would have undoubtedly required additional analysis, imposed additional mitigation measures in the form of conditions of approval that would have addressed some of these issues that we are concerned about developing the coastal bluff at Naples. None of that ever occurred. So you're being asked to rely basically on a draft EIR that for purposes of coastal development on the Naples Bluff and in the coastal zone was never finalized. There are also, independent of that, changed circumstances and new information that result in substantially increased impacts. Something you haven't heard about and you didn't see in the applicant's presentation is that this development would rely on all new infrastructure for water, water treatment, on-site well, et cetera, that was not part of the Santa Barbara Ranch project. Santa Barbara Ranch project had a diversified set of water sources that were treated at a pre-existing water treatment facility north of Highway 101. Sewage would have been piped off the coastal bluff, treated north of Highway 101. Now all that infrastructure is being put on the coastal bluff at Naples. There's cultural resources, groundwater impacts, many impacts that have not been considered. Thank you very much. We ask that you deny this project.
Thank you very much, Ms. Citrin. Mary Bird, followed by Chris Del Moro.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this project. Administrator Liu, it seems to me you have many good reasons to deny this project, but I want to focus on the big picture. Yesterday at 2 p.m., it was a minus tide, so I walked from Haskell's Beach up to Naples, and it was incredible. And I had forgotten how you see the whole coastline in front of you. You see the shape of the land. You see something you just don't get to see very much in California, in this part of California. And of course, there's so many birds and so many creatures in the water and out of the water. It is just a very, very special place. Now, it seems to me that climate change is going to take away a lot of our special places. It's going to take away habitats. It's going to take away birds. It's going to take away mammals. It's going to take away wetlands. This is a special place we have the opportunity to protect. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Chris Del Moro, to be followed by Samuel Blackwell.
Oh, good day. I'll just cut to the chase. Please deny the DMF's coastal development permit application. I speak on behalf of my 2 young boys I'm raising in the county here, and my wife, and the countless amount of friends who couldn't come today because they have work and couldn't have their voices shared. You know, Site 66, although dressed up with all the easements and public access granted, it's such a slippery slope. And I've really lived this experience. To me, what feels like a nightmare. I was raised in Rancho Palos Verdes on one of the last beautiful pieces of LA County that was undeveloped, and a local developer came in. We got all the mega mansions. We got the golf course. He went bankrupt. Donald Trump took it over. It's now the public golf course, or Trump International Golf Courses. It's never been the same. It creates so many fractures in our community. We went from a very close community to one that now has hundreds of thousands of people coming through. The impact it's had on our environment, on the people that live there, that love it, that call it home, has just been rippling. this space, the Gaviota, I've been coming since I was a little boy, and it's not just the locals that benefit from this. It's internationally known. I've spent all my life in the Pacific Ocean. It's a place that people talk about when you're in Tahiti. It's a place you meet people in Ireland. They talk about, wow, Gaviota is so special. How has it happened? That's the legacy of this land, of all the environmental stewards, of the city council that has protected it all this time. And in this last year, from LCAP to this project, we're looking at a major change to the Gaviota Coast, and one that you cannot change later. Once these mega mansions start coming in, the environmental impact from the building, from the lack of water, from the sewage treatment, the list goes on and on. I really ask the county zoning to do the right thing, keep it as is, let the future generations enjoy it like we have, and respect the natives, respect the locals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Samuel Blackwell, to be followed by Maya Jamal.
I don't know about y'all, but I can feel a fire in this room. Okay. I'm a building inspector with the city of Santa Barbara for 26 years. I'm very acquainted with stormwater management, water quality control, and erosion. And this project would endanger the animals. This project would require a septic system. If you go down onto the beach, halfway down the bluff, there's a hard pan. So all the water that goes, including sewage, would go down and hit the hard pan and then come out the edge of the bluff, right where all the animals are interfacing. The third party referred to that dissed the property was the driver of the tractor paid by the owner. I'm glad I got a couple laughs off of that. We got that straight. Naples is a point, and all of the land that feeds this point for all the life that lives there needs to be left undisturbed. Otherwise, the development will destroy all the microbes in the soil that support the interaction of the life between the relationship of land and sea. The owners of these mansions will hire landscape contractors that will use fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and other chemicals that will kill the tide pool that is just trying to heal from Fukushima and all the radiation that came down our coast that killed over 968 seals that got left dead on the beach. The point is where the gray whales, humpback whales, and elephant seals migrate from Santa Cruz Island and spend their time there with their young. The little baby elephant seals are kicked out of the nest by their mother and have to swim over here on their own, and then they molt their hide on the beach. I've seen this multiple times. The first time I saw it, I thought the poor little seal was dying. And so I called my animal people that I know, and they said, no, he's just swimming over here by his own to molt his fur. There will be no more accessible coastal land, no more coastal views like was mentioned. It's a real clean breath when you hit there, and then you leave the coast. You're forced to leave the coast because Hollister Ranch is right there. And you leave the coast and you don't get back to the coast up north until you're north of Santa Maria. So you're missing all this coastline. It's a very special place for wildlife: osprey, pelicans, cranes, blue herons, seagulls, coyotes, mountains, lions, and bears. And these creatures need access, not to be blocked. There's a quote here in Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. And
Mr. Blackwell,
okay, can I taper? Just real quick.
I need you to wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, let me wrap up. For God will destroy those who destroy the earth. And Romans 8:22, where we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Maya Jamal, to be followed by Hannah Robinson.
Thank you for your time. My name is Maya Jamal. I've been fighting this since 2000. In this room today, there's Chumash people, descendant from this land 10,000 years. There's also Spanish, Mexican indigenous, and environmental organizations. Thousands of people I have organized against this project. And all of the letters last year our community put together, that wasn't said. I think it was over 300. Not sure, but I'd like to hear that number. So we saved the property next door, Arco, from becoming now called Paradiso del Mar because of the monarch butterfly. Now I've heard of this beautiful bumblebee. I want to speak really quickly on Rosa Den. When Rosa Den died, her husband, Rosa Den, was the Mexican land grant owner. She was an indigenous, Spanish, Mexican, and an American woman. Questionably, whether she was Chumash or not. The land titles to this land are in question. I have spoken directly with the San Ynez Chumash Band. I have toured this land with the San Ynez Chumash Cultural Monitors. They have endless money to fight this project. And I want you to know, quite frankly, I am disgusted that there is no historical reference to this project. You have left it out. There is no Chumash mention of Cuyamu. There is no Chumash mention of the burial sites. And I've seen the maps because I've worked with Lorianne's grandfather on this. I know where those burials are. And your neighbors next door at Paradiso del Mar, where we stopped the golf course, they can't even move forward 1 inch because they keep running into human remains. So I want to say to the lawyers that the Chumash told me they caught some people camping on the property. So excited looking where the kitchen was going to be. He was a cultural monitor on the pipeline going through by the railroad tracks. He said, go back to your lawyer. They sold you land that you can't develop on because it's a burial ground. Not only that, he said, you've been duped. So go back and talk to your lawyer. And what I want to say to the developer, we have many cultural traditions here. What I want to say to the landowner, your cultural traditions, I respect all peoples and backgrounds. If the owner of this land is Chinese, there is a historical reference that you do not want to disturb the bones on the land. And that is bad for your people. Give this land back to the Chumash. And we will be going to San Ynez.
Thank you very much. Hannah Robinson, to be followed by Linda Kropp.
Hi there. My name's Hannah Robinson. Thank you, Ms. Lou, and to everybody who came out today. I am from Santa Barbara, and I love this town with my whole heart. I was born here at Cottage Hospital. My family has been here for over 200 years, and we love Santa Barbara because it's not LA, and it boasts natural beauty that you really just can't find anywhere else in the world. Those of us here today represent the thousands in our community who aren't able to be here today, but who share our feelings of keeping Gaviota wild. I'd like to echo all the comments made here today by other speakers, including preserving biodiversity, open space, and natural beauty. I'd like to add the point that the average 4-bedroom home is about 2,000 square feet. It's hard to imagine why any person would need to build a 6,500 square foot home, especially in a section of land as sacred as this one. I believe this applicant can find a home in Santa Barbara, Goleta, or Montecito that is already built with the square footage and views they're seeking to find at Naples. No amount of mitigation can outweigh the harm of this unnecessary development and the precedent it sets. Please deny this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kropp, to be followed by Tara Rengifo.
Good morning. I'm Linda Kropp, Chief Counsel of the Environmental Defense Center, appearing on behalf of EDC and Surfrider Foundation. Tara Rengifo and Brian Trotwine will also speak from EDC. My comments will focus on two issues. First, the need to make a final determination regarding the restoration plan before considering the development plan. And second, the inappropriate use of an addendum to meet the requirements of CEQA. First, it is critical that the county decouple the restoration and development projects and first consider the restoration plan, which is required as a result of illegal disking and notice of violation. The reason these have to be decoupled and the restoration plan considered first is because under Gaviota Coast Plan Policy NS 11 for the coastal portion, any areas that are restored must be preserved in perpetuity for conservation and or open space purposes. And so until you know what areas have to be restored, they must be preserved. That will then limit where development can occur. That process has not completed, and we have submitted extensive comments criticizing the adequacy of the restoration plan. And so until those are resolved, the plan cannot be approved, and then the development plan can be submitted as an application based on that. Second, as Ms. Citrin pointed out, the county improperly relies on an addendum that is tied to the 2008 Environmental Impact Report. That EIR, however, is not applicable because in 2009, the applicant withdrew the approvals and, in fact, the application for the coastal project, which includes the DMF property. All county approvals related to the coastal project, including certification of the EIR, were stayed by a lawsuit brought by EDC and Surfrider Foundation. Accordingly, the validity of that EIR as applied to this project has not been upheld and remains subject to legal challenge. Therefore, new environmental review is required before this project can be approved. Even if the 2008 EIR were deemed valid for the coastal project, including the DMF property, the county must conduct supplemental environmental review due to new information and changed circumstances, as Tara Rengifo will discuss. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tara Rengifo, followed by Brian Trotwine. And then just for people in the audience, after Mr. Trotwine speaks, we'll take a brief 10-minute recess for those that need a bio break. And then we'll go back to the speakers. All right, Ms. Rengifo.
Good morning, Zoning Administrator Liu. My name is Tara Rengifo, and I am a senior attorney with the Environmental Defense Center. My testimony will focus on the clear need for supplemental environmental review due to new information and changed circumstances since the 2008 final EIR. As Ms. Kropp explained, we do not think the applicant can rely on the 2008 EIR because the coastal project was withdrawn in 2009 and the legal challenge to the validity of the EIR for the coastal project has been stayed. However, even if that were not the case, an addendum for this project is not appropriate because CEQA addendums are reserved for minor technical changes to an existing environmental review. This is not the case here. Circumstances have changed due to new information, and as a result, the project will result in significant new impacts. This triggers the requirements for a supplemental EIR. EDC and Surfrider's May 2024 and February 2025 comments provide detailed discussions and expert analysis about substantial new information since the 2008 EIR was certified. My testimony will focus on the new information presented in Dr. Seltman's report attached to our February 7th comments. Dr. Seltman is a research entomologist and director of the Center for Biodiversity and Ecological Restoration at UCSB. She surveyed Naples for insect and bee species last year, and through her efforts, she identified 6 species of bumblebee and 2 species of butterflies within flight distance from Lot 66. One such species is the California bumblebee, which is designated as an IUCN vulnerable G3 species. These species are considered vulnerable to extinction. In her report, she found that the area is important for supporting bees and that the area qualifies as ESHA. The Gaviota Coast Plan's policy NS4 has specific criteria for designating habitats as ESHA, and if the criteria is satisfied, strong protections are afforded to these areas under policy NS2. The California bumblebee is considered rare and its habitat is ESHA. The 2008 EIR preceded the Gaviota Coast Plan's protections, so this is new information that could not have been known at the time of the 2008 EIR.
The applicant recently proposed measures to survey and create buffers as necessary for the western bumblebee and the Crotches bumblebee. But no design features or mitigation measures are required for the California bumblebee, which again, Dr. Saltman found within flight distance of Lot 66. The applicant's proposal also will not protect ESHA under the GCP policy. The impacts on this species and mitigation measures to reduce these impacts must be analyzed in a subsequent EIR. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trotwine.
Good morning, Administrator Liu. I'm Brian Troutwine, Senior Analyst and Program Director with EDC. I will address new information since the final EIR concerning white-tailed kites and wetlands, which demonstrates new and substantially increased significant impacts. First, the estate must be denied because Lot 66 is within ESHA. Naples is a hotspot for white-tailed kites. The county's peer review biologist, Hunt and Associates, observed kites foraging on site, and there is extensive undisputed documentation of kites foraging at Naples. The Gaviota Coast Plan designated white-tailed kite foraging habitat as ESHA, as noted by Hunt and the Coastal Commission. This is substantial new information since the EIR. Nesting and roosting are not required, but have also been documented at Naples. Grasslands in Gaviota, even non-native grasslands used by kites to forage, are now ESHA. The project site is part of a larger habitat and is protected under the GCP. Developing Lot 66 would violate policy NS2. Habitats that have been altered, including grazed land, can still qualify as ESHA, even if not currently mapped as such. Without this protection, kite foraging habitat in Gaviota could be destroyed. Hunt found illegal disking at Naples significantly degraded the habitat for kites and their prey, but the restoration plan omits kite habitat. Second, regarding wetlands, the Coastal Commission and Hunt directed the wetland delineation occur at the end of the rainy season, consistent with guidance from the Corps of Engineers. But the applicant's 2024 wetland delineation occurred during the summer. As a result, the 2024 delineation, like the 2015 drought time delineation, found no additional wetlands compared to the EIR. The 2024 delineation found no wetlands at all. The 2024 delineation omits the mapped wetland in Lot 69, which was also illegally disked. The restoration plan, however, omits Lot 69. The 2024 delineation also omits the wetland in the drainage crossed by Langtree Avenue, which is mapped in the EIR and by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The GCP mandates a 100-foot setback from wetlands, but the Langtree crossing is within 100 feet. Intensified use of the road would violate the GCP. Contrary to the addendum, it would also violate mitigation measure Bio5. In closing, the project must be denied because it would violate the GCP's ESHA and wetland policies and significantly impact the public's protected natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trotwine. We are going to take a 10-minute recess. So we'll reconvene at 11:05 roughly. And for those of you who want to submit a speaker slip, now's the time to do it because after that, that's going to be the bulk of it. Mr. Martin? All right. All right, everyone, settle down. We're going to reconvene. All right, everyone, I hereby reconvene the February 10th, 2025 County Zoning Administrator hearing. We'll resume public speakers. Josie Hoffman, to be followed by Ray Ward.
you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you for everyone who came so well prepared to eloquently speak on the different issues at hand. I am a third generation Santa Barbara County resident. Our family came here in the 50s, and we are 35 members strong. And I want to go on record as opposing this development for my 3 sons who are surfers. Myself, I am also a surfer, and I have 10 nieces and nephews, 3 brothers and a sister. And the Acosta family opposes this development. I am asking for a new EIR report. 2008 was a very long time ago, and I'm sure with new technologies and developments, there is a possibility that more things should be discovered and can be discovered. I would like to place an emphasis on the species, the burrowing owl. I heard one person mention the owl, but it is a species near and dear to our family's heart. I would like a study done on the effects of headlights and foot traffic on the Harbor Seal Rookery that is on the beach there. I would like a study on the effects of residential and agricultural runoff on marine life in this area below this bluff. And I'm also asking for an up-to-date, in-depth archaeology report on this area. Please deny this application on Site 66. As many people stated and pointed out, it is a slippery slope to the rest of the 71 mansions that people are asking be developed. This is a sanctuary for wildlife and the human heart. We are asking that you rule against this build and preserve the beauty of this natural land for future generations. This is a very unique opportunity to set aside this land and to be remembered as a hero in our community. In the soul of every man and woman, there is a deep desire to be part of something beautiful and larger than ourselves. And this is your opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ray Ward, to be followed by Nancy Black.
Aku, good morning. Ray Ward. Espinosa Ortega. From Santa Barbara and the Channel Islands from time immemorial. I want to say that, the proposal to build 72 mansions on the coast is not a viable energy. And I'm here representing my family, an extended family, to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy Black. And then after this speaker, we'll go to the online speakers.
Hi, my name is Nancy Black. I'm representing the Committees for Land, Air, Water, and Species, or CLAWS. We wrote a letter. I'm also on the board of the Gaviota Coast Conservancy and have been, I understand the history of this property going back at least 20 years because I've been working on it, like Janet. When you think of the creatures who are there, this is the choice for them. What we decide here today, it impacts those lives now. The people who go there Claus is proud to serve as fiscal sponsor for a group of Barbareño Chumash. And they have let me know that they are heartily opposed to this project, as many speakers have expressed. There has never really been a deep archaeological survey of what's there, and burials are likely. So those are ancestors there. Ancestors and kin, the living creatures who are there. So the developer may feel that they have within their rights to develop this property, but they have not followed the rules, not in the history. They have not followed the laws. And the disking that was done was a travesty. And we won't know the extent of the damage to indigenous species like the Gaviota coastal tar plant or the bumblebees, as we've heard before, the other creatures that are only in that place of all the places in the world. That place, the Gaviota Coast has been called the Galapagos of the United States. And it's a biodiversity hotspot similar to the Galapagos and deserving of that kind of protection. On behalf of the Chumash people who Claus is grateful to represent, and on behalf of the creatures who are voiceless, I give my thanks to you in advance for consideration of denying this project, this dangerous project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Our next online speaker, please.
Our next online speaker will be Justin Huitema.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, and also just I'm so appreciative to all the community that's come together to oppose this project. I just wanted to say that I went to school in Santa Barbara, and this area of coastline where the development is proposed is just so special for all the reasons the technical experts have listed, and also as others have given heartfelt experiences and recollections of their time there. But I just wanted to say that this area is magical, and it is home to several species with protected or endangered or listed status, as many others have mentioned, and not to mention that it is grounds of the Chumash people. So this area should be an ESHA, and it should be treated as such and protected as such, and I strongly oppose the development. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our next speaker, Dan Gira. Dan, can you hear us? If you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. It just did. Tell me, you're muted now. How do I unmute? I thought I just did that.
No, you're good.
Okay, good. Ms. Liu, thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'm Dan Giroux, Vice President of the Santa Barbara County Trails Council. Been working on the Gaviota Coast for many decades. Certainly appreciate the heartfelt input of all the residents and citizens who are concerned about this development. We are here just to talk about coastal access and trail development. And so the project dedicates 3 lateral access easements, which, if this project is ever built, would help us complete the California Coastal Trail across Naples eventually. I should note that the Trails Council builds and maintains trails for the Santa Barbara County. We built about 20 miles of trails in the last decade alone for the county. We are currently designing 1.1 miles of the California Coastal Trail just east of this site on the Paradiso Del Mar property, including a small public parking lot and access across the railroad. So the one outstanding thing we think has to happen here is that we really need to consider vertical access in the context of this development should it ever be built. We could do a much better job describing the context of trails on this property. Even though I have 40 years of professional planning experience, finding the trail stuff beyond the brief summary in Mr. Schmuckel's excellent staff report is its trails seem to be undervalued. There's much more information on the Noble Bumblebee than there is on the trails on the Naples site in this project. So I think the county can do a better job on planning for trails. To close, while we all love our seal brothers, I would note that the Carpinteria Seal Haul Out is directly beneath a heavily used section of the California Coastal Trail with an overlook directly looking down onto the seals. And there are major coastal access points about 1.5 miles east and a half mile to the west. And yet the Carpinteria seals are thriving, just to reassure people who are concerned, rightfully so, about the seals. So that's our comment. We look forward to working with the county on reviewing the potential for vertical access on this as part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Giral. Mr. Martin, our next speaker, please.
Our next speaker will be Mariana Parra.
Haku Gianti Kakti Marianne. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. I am just calling in today. I couldn't be there in person, but I am strongly in opposition against this project. I too am a descendant from the village of Miku. That is my strongest lineage point. Our DNA goes back over 10,000 years. We can actually prove this. I think it's really important to understand that our village sites had also grave sites. So we continue to desecrate the land. In modern day history, no one would go to a known cemetery and say we need housing, especially mansions or mini mansions. We're gonna dig all this up and bury it on top, and we don't want to hear any opposition. It should be okay. This is immensely wrong against everything that we believe and stand for. And I would think even people who are not Chumash would understand the desecration of our ancestors is horrific. We continually live through this. Decade after decade. Nobody needs a mini mansion to survive in. In fact, we don't even need houses in general to survive in. We've survived for thousands of years without these types of structures. Some of the most rarest plants and animal species, especially the birds, live in this area. We know this for a fact. So if we continue to build here on ancestral mudslide area and fire area, we're going to destroy it. We know humans are the number one cause of fires. We've seen, we continue to see over California how people move into the bluffs, to the canyons, to the mountains. At what point are we going to address the fact that humans are not meant to live in these areas? Why do we continue to build these structures that are going to eventually burn at some point, even if it's 20, 30 years that the house has been sitting there? And how do you balance that out? The county, the state ends up paying more money, the insurance, why we're having so much issues with the insurance, they end up paying more money for the fires and all the destruction that they do. It makes no sense. It should be saved in perpetuity. It should be saved as an open space. We know as human beings, our mental, physical health, emotional well-being is so much better when we have access to open space. These areas are some of the most precious in the state of California. As our elder says, our Chumash people, they knew real estate. It wasn't a commodity to us. It was important for us to take care of the land so that it takes care of us. When we continue to build these mini mansions, it only supplies housing to a very select few that can afford to live there. What happens to everybody else? It doesn't solve the housing crisis. It doesn't solve any of the problems. The water is the other huge thing. There was another development proposed a few years ago that was on the same side of the mountain, knowing there's no water there and you're going to have to put in piping all the way down. The original idea to another spot was they're going to put in piping, connect it to State Street, and pull water from the businesses and restaurants there. Can you imagine the amount of backup or issues that we would run into? It's not going to run smoothly. Again, I stand very strongly against this development project. Just because you see an open space piece of land doesn't mean we can build up on every piece of land we have available. There needs to be open space, especially when we know these are village sites. We know that there are grave sites on here of our ancestors. Like, at what point are we going to stop destroying our native
Ms.
habitat?
Parra, thank you. I'm going to need you to wrap up.
At what point do we stop destroying our native habitat and the desecration of bodies? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Martin, do we have any additional requests to speak online?
We did have Jacob Panosian. Jacob, are you still there? Okay, we'll go to our next speaker, Mika Acosta. Oh, Jacob, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Good morning, Ms. Liu and everyone here. My name is Jacob Panosian, and I was born and raised in the Gaviota Coast. And its rolling hills, sacred indigenous sites, and untouched shoreline has always been my home, my refuge, and my heart. Losing Naples to careless development isn't just upsetting, it's unthinkable. Today, I urge the applicants in the county to stop this project and protect what's left of our region's soul. This project isn't development, it is the creation of a new city disguised as a town. It would divide our coast into 72 mansions, 72 guest houses, and 216 septic systems, violating the Gaviota Coast Plan and causing permanent damage. Worse, it's built on stolen land. The illegal land grab by J.J. Hollister and Williams, who took land for the Den and Francisco Ortega families, many of them indigenous descendants, are not distant history. They are wounds that have never healed. The county must face this truth by reviewing hidden land records and respecting the original caretakers of this land. Dos Pueblos, named in 1542 for the Chumash village of Cuyamu, is the oldest place in Goleta. How can we let that history be erased? How can we ignore Governor Newsom's land back efforts urging the return of stolen land to indigenous tribes? This project is on stolen ground. It should be protected, not destroyed. The environmental damage would be devastating. 15 rare species, including white-tailed kites, rely on this land. The Naples Reef, a thriving underwater ecosystem, will be polluted by septic runoff. In 2012, as a freshman at San Marcos High School, I wrote a report urging people to protect Naples. More than 10 years later, I am making the same plea. The Gaviota Coast is the last unspoiled coastal ecosystem in Southern California, and once it's gone forever. The county claims that merging 4 lots reduces development, but that is misleading. It is just a sneaky way to allow urban sprawl. Where is the transfer of development rights that the Board of Supervisors promised? Why are we rezoning farmlands for luxury homes instead of protecting it for future generations? I beg you, look beyond rushed reports and misleading arguments. See Naples for what it is, a cultural landmark, an environmental treasure, and a symbol of the Chumash people's resilience. Don't let developers turn our coastline into another place lost to traffic, pollution, and regret. I am speaking here today not just as a concerned citizen, but as someone whose roots are tied to this land. Santa Barbara is my home, and Naples is my history. Let's fight together to protect it. Reject this project and save Naples. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin.
Okay, next we will have Mika Acosta, followed
How's
by.
it going, guys?
Sorry.
Is my microphone working now?
Yes, it is. Just making one announcement real quick. We're gonna have Mika Acosta followed by Gunnar Totrim. I see more hands going up in the chat. After this announcement, we will not be taking any more public comment. So if anybody in the audience or in the attendees column would like to make a comment, please have your hand raised. And at this point, we will be cutting off public comment. Thank you. Go ahead, Mika, sorry.
You're good. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to mention the fact that I grew up on the Naples coastline and spending my days surfing on the beach and playing in the ocean. This place isn't just where I grew up, it's part of who I am. And I want to strongly oppose this development because I believe it will drastically alter the coastline and permanently change the place we all love. Once it's gone, we can't get it back. Once we build these huge mansions and developments, it doesn't just go back. The concrete doesn't just disappear. The animals will not stay, they'll leave. I urge you to consider the long-term impact on the community and the natural beauty that makes this place so special to all of us. I just want you to make sure that I reject this application, and thank you for your time.
Okay, next speaker will be Jacob Panosian. I saw you were having your hand up earlier. If you're on your phone, if you could press *6 to
You already
unmute.
took Jacob.
We already took Jacob, sorry about that. Aaron Howard.
No, you already took this, Gunnar. Gunnar.
Oh, sorry. Gunnar Totrum.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hear you.
All right, great, thank you. Thanks everyone for showing up, for being there. My name's Gunnar Totrum. I'm a 7th generation Gaviota land steward, 10th generation Santa Barbara, and everyone's said what needs to be said. I just want to go on record saying I oppose this development. What I will say is, for the better part of the last 15 years, we've fought to keep this stretch of coastline undeveloped, and we've succeeded thus far. And that's why this, even though it's only a single family residence, that's the argument you're going to hear, the impact of that one single family residence is just enormous. The fact that we've successfully staved it off this long means that if the door just cracks open that little bit, that means septic development, water development. And those of us that are from this area, we know the water on those parcels. It's garbage. I'm surprised the county passed the legal amount required for a single family residence. I know those wells specifically, and the water's poor and it's very limited amount. So I just urge you, take a strong look at this, see the precedents that's going to be set for this amazing coastline, and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. That will conclude the online public comment. I have one final speaker slip here for Keith Zandova.
Good morning. My name is Keith Zandona, second generation Santa Barbara native. I've started surfing and hiking and biking out at that place at Naples in the mid 60s and have done it even to this day. When we were opposing the golf course, as I was the president or the chapter chair of the Santa Barbara Surf Rider, what we found out there was incredible as far as the species. It may, Pedro Nava of the Santa Barbara or the California Coastal Commission dubbed it a natural zoo out there. There's white-tailed kites, butterflies, monarch butterflies, red-legged frogs, coyotes and bobcats, and we also have a seal rookery. Isn't that protected with the National Marine Protection Act? The effect is going to be incredible on that area. The infrastructure to bring it to that place is just going to encourage more development. The size of it is incredible, way oversized. It's on that bluff, which has avalanches constantly and always have. Every year there's an avalanche on that bluff, and it's only going to encourage that. So then about 2005, I became the president of the Santa Barbara County Archaeological Society. And this is a special place out there. This whole, the spirits are out there, and they're going to be all around this. And for you to desecrate this beautiful area and encourage more growth, it just would be devastating to that whole area. We need to live simply so others may be able to simply live. So thank you very much. I oppose to this. This should not ever even occur. It shouldn't even be approved. And thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public speakers portion of this hearing. Mr. Schmuckel, any final comments, questions, or comments in general in response to the comments you have heard?
Ms. Liu, there are a few
items I want to address. First off, regarding the bumblebee, we had discussions with the applicant team, and they're willing to adjust the project description to include the additional bumblebee species as part of the supplement to the project description. So hopefully that will be more encompassing. I also wanted to discuss the.
Before you move forward from that, I'm not sure, what does that mean in terms of the overall project description?
So right now, the project description has a supplement that's included as attachment P to the staff report that has a requirement for pre-construction surveys and buffers to be included if those bumblebee species are identified. And only a few species are included in that supplement. And so public comment brought up a new bumblebee species, the Californicus, the California bumblebee. And so what the applicant is proposing is to expand attachment P, the supplement, to also include that species.
So in the scheme of project planning and future development, what does that mean on the ground?
So before Ms. Liu, before the project is developed, the applicant is required to do a pre-construction survey for special status species. And this supplement is specific for bumblebee species. And so an entomologist will go out on site and do pre-construction surveys to identify if these bumblebee species are present, or if the flora that the bumblebees rely on are present on site. And if they are, if the bumblebee or the flora is present, then buffer zones will be implemented to make sure that the species are not impacted.
All right, next.
The other item I want to address is regarding cultural resources. There were a number of claims that a cultural resource study has not been done on site, and I want to clarify the record that we do have a phase 1 cultural resource study for the site that was done for this project, and no impacts to cultural resources were identified in that study. There have also been surveys conducted in 1984 and 2005 that come to the same conclusion. Oh, in addition, just to have another layer of just to be safe, the project is also conditioned to require a qualified archaeologist and a Native American monitor to be on site during all grading activities. So if something is found, then our standard cultural resource protection policies make sure that no work is occurring in that area until the archaeologist gets out there and identifies if it's a significant resource.
Okay, thank you very much. So there were a lot of comments regarding the adequacy and appropriateness of applying the program EIR. Can you speak to that a little bit? Or I guess Ms. Collins wants to speak to that.
Thank you, Zoning Administrator Liu. Sure, I can cover that quickly. The 2008 EIR, there's a longstanding precedent in CEQA. There are a few of them that are triggered here. One is preference for an EIR, right? We always want to prefer an EIR. It's a better standard of review. And once an EIR is prepared, there is a presumption that the county need not redo that EIR. That's a critical foundational element here. There was also mentioned that that final EIR that was certified by the county in 2008 was a draft EIR. That's not the case. It was a final EIR. It analyzed the entire project, coastal and inland. It was not bifurcated like the permits. And that EIR was then certified. It was challenged. The trial court upheld that. There was no appeal filed. That means it's a final approved EIR and proper for the use by the county for an addendum as long as it meets the test in section 21166 of CEQA. And that is, there are no new significant impacts associated with this project, which is the case here. Ms. Citrin also highlighted that the project will be, well, if it's appealed to the CCC or the Coastal Commission, it's also good to know that the Coastal Commission does have its own certified regulatory program. If an appeal is submitted and accepted by the Coastal Commission will prepare what is the equivalent of an EIR through that certified regulatory program. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Collins. Mr. Schmuckel, is that also staff's analysis according to what Ms. Collins has spoken to?
Ms. Liu, yes, the EAR together with the addendum remains adequate environmental review for the project.
So my follow-up question then is in the 2008 EIR that analyzed this entire swath of area, for this particular site, did it look at the development envelope, because the development envelope is a little different than what was previous? And did they look at these impacts that people have brought up during this hearing and whether or not it's covered in that program EIR?
Ms. Liu, so the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR had a different development envelope than what is proposed now. However, the site was analyzed as part of that EIR, and the mitigation measures that were identified are still applicable for this proposed project. The development envelope for this lot is smaller than what was approved under the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR. And for this project, we did site-specific surveys to make sure that the new development envelope didn't have any environmental impacts that were not analyzed in the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR. So that included the cultural resource phase 1 survey, the biological resource surveys, and those resource surveys.
So just to add a little bit more, the site itself was analyzed and the resources.
With this particular envelope?
The entire site,
entire site.
including the envelope and the non-envelope areas were analyzed. And that's why we have information about, for example, the wetland areas that are located outside of the envelope, but are still located on the site and located off-site, as well as the other vegetation. And as Mr. Schmuckel mentioned, we also have updated biological and cultural studies that are specific to the proposal. And what the addendum does is it goes through and compares the analysis from the Santa Barbara Ranch EIR and that proposed project to the currently proposed project issue area by issue area mitigation, impact area by impact area, and evaluates the adequacy of the mitigation measures and updates them to be applicable to this project specifically.
Thank you very much for that. I'm looking at the staff presentation, slide 12. Mr. Martin, if you want to bring that up. That's perfect. Thank you. So in this slide, what it's suggesting is the only time we would consider whether or not the EIR is adequate or whether this addendum is adequate are those two kind of dash marks you have listed on there, correct?
Ms. Liu, that's correct. That's a summary of the circumstances. It's not the full text of the language, but it's a summary of the circumstances.
Right. So essentially, staff's position is that you don't need an addendum because there are substantial project changes or substantial changes to circumstances have not occurred, right? That's their first part. So Ms. Collins, yes?
It's not that we don't need an addendum. We have an addendum. We don't need a new EIR.
Right. Sorry, pardon my slip up. Yes. So, Ms. Liu, you're saying that staff is suggesting that the new EIR is not required because there are not substantial project changes that weren't already covered in the EIR originally.
There are not substantial project changes that weren't covered that would result in a significant environmental impact. That's the other key point.
Okay. And then the secondary, that you don't have new information that would result in the same.
We do not have new information that would result in a significant effect. And then one other thing a new significant effect that isn't already mitigated via the mitigation measures that are already in place in the EIR.
Okay, thank you very much for that. As far as, because there was a little, some discrepancy about the litigation of the 2008 EIR, what is staff's position on that? Is this final EIR and it's?
Staff's position is that this is a final certified EIR that can be relied upon for this project and that we can prepare an addendum based off of. And we have researched that thoroughly.
Okay. One other concern that I have is regarding the bioanalysis. I know you have your biologist here. Can you walk me through your analysis in this project site?
Well, so you have to kind of start with the analysis that was done for the EIR. Oh, sorry. Is that better? Yeah, okay. You have to walk through the analysis that was done for the EIR. So there was an initial bio study of the ranch that was done in 2004. And I think the reporting on that was around 2005, 2006. And then it kind of went stepwise from there. Then the EIR consultant did a field verification of the biological information. There was a subsequent biological study that included wetlands as well as special status species that was done in 2015. There were actually two separate reports, one for the general biology and one for wetlands. And so that was kind of the foundational information that we had before we even started our work. Initially, I think it was in the 2017 timeframe, we went and did biological surveys of the development area. And then following the illegal disking, we mapped the limits of that disking, observed how that overlapped with known resources that had been mapped for the EIR purposes, and then supplemented with the 2015 study to determine the amount of impacts that were caused by the disking. That kind of was folded into the record. We did some subsequent work. I want to say it was like 2022 to observe the site to make sure it hadn't changed since our 2017 study. So there's been kind of a stepwise study of DMF following the Santa Barbara Ranch kind of greater biological studies and wetland analysis. Followed up by, we did an additional wetland study just last year in 2024. I don't know if you want more detail than that, because I could
So
sleep under the bench.
thank you. I guess what my question and lingering in my head is there were some comments about, when you guys went out there, whether the timing of you going out there is appropriate and whether or not it should have been timed with some other event. So can you address that?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. So just to be clear, that that comment is specifically related to wetlands issues, not biology in general. I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing here. And the comment that was made was that July is late in the year and that it's hard to detect wetlands at that time of year. I acknowledge it's nice to go out there at the absolute best time of year when areas are flooded and whatnot. However, I've been doing wetland delineations for over 30 years. I've done wetland delineations in the desert in August. That's about the worst it gets. And I will tell you that a trained wetland biologist can detect characteristics of the environment that indicate hydrology in the past, that'll indicate that there was the characteristics there earlier in the year. I've been doing botanical studies for over 30 years. I'm really good at identifying dried up, dead wetland plants. And as a matter of fact, I did for this very study. There was one area that we looked at that had wetland vegetation, and it was very, very clear what it was to me. So I am very confident in the results of that 2024 analysis.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schmuckel, Ms. Liu, I know that in other projects, you tend to have an applicant's specialist study peer-reviewed by like a neutral third party. What is your general practice and whether or not this report was peer-reviewed or not?
Ms. Liu, so the biologist for this project is a county-approved biologist. She's on our list of county-approved consultants. And when we were reading the updated report, we didn't find any new information in that report that caused us to question the results or accuracy of the report. The 2024 wetland delineation confirmed what prior wetland delineations had found on site regarding the wetlands that existed, both inside and outside of the development envelope. And usually we would do a peer review when there was some information that we had questions or concerns about.
And one thing I just wanted to add is that in this case, we had, and Ms. Klug can go through it, we had multiple data points studied from different biologists prior to her study, reconfirming the same information that she found. So I just wanted to point that out, and she can go through the multiple delineations and data points that we have.
Ms. Liu, would you like me to? Sure. Okay. So in 2004, and I'm giving you the dates of when the personnel were in the field, not the report dates. So in 2004, there was wetland mapping for the entire Santa Barbara Ranch, which included both the proposed development envelopes as well as the entire ranch. And I think at that point, the development envelopes weren't even proposed. So it just covered the entire ranch. There was a field verification done by URS in 2007. And then in 2015, John Storer, another county-approved biologist and somebody who often does the peer reviews for the county, did a complete wetland mapping of the entire Santa Barbara Ranch. In 2017, Cardno, at the time that's where I was working, just to dispel any kind of misunderstanding, did wetland surveys on the DMF property, so just limited to lot 66, I believe. And then in 2024, I subsequently did that wetland delineation last year. So that is a total of 5 wetland delineations of that particular site.
By 5 different personnel?
4 different.
4 different personnel. Okay. Thank you. Final thoughts. There were some comments about why this project was kind of coupled with the development and the habitat restoration. I'm guessing Ms. Collins, you probably want to address that, like why we are where we are and why they were coupled together.
Yes, thank you, Zoning Administrator Liu. Well, as I mentioned in my presentation, when the appeal that came in on the habitat restoration plan that you had previously approved ended up raising all sorts of questions. Well, what's going to happen with the house and how's that going to be located and what's going to be the setbacks? It just made it clear that the two are inextricably intertwined. And we need to make sure, and some of the comments in the appeal were, we need to make sure that the house doesn't impact the restoration, and we need to make sure that the restoration doesn't impact the house. And so the two together, it makes sense. They're all in the same parcel. CEQA does favor consideration of all the things that are happening on a project site together. And so that's where we decided to integrate the two into one project.
Great. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Ms. Lou, I also want to follow up on that. We agree with what Ms. Collins said regarding the two projects. I do want to clarify, though, that while we're talking about both projects together in this hearing, they are separate permits. So you have the ability to approve one, but not the other.
Thank you very much. I did see that as two very separate actions. So thank you, Mr. Schmuckel. I don't have any further questions or concerns for the planner or the applicant team. I will say that clearly everybody is very passionate about this area, not just this site, but this area in general. And I appreciate everybody's coming out to provide public comment. But based on what I have heard and based on the numerous hearings we have had on this project related to this site, I think that staff has done a great job in their staff reports, the multiple staff reports that you guys have prepared. And I appreciate the efforts. I know that this can't be easy. So I will ask everybody to be respectful and be quiet because it is a public hearing that's being televised. I am ready because I think regardless of whatever I do here, this project is obviously going to be appealed. So I will go ahead and make the required findings for this project as specified in attachment A of the staff report, including the CEQA findings. I have considered the environmental review documents included as attachment C and the addendum dated May 2024 together with the previously adopted EIR. I determined that as reflected in the CEQA findings, no subsequent EIR or negative declaration should be prepared for this project. And I approve this project, case number 16 CDH 00016, 17 CUP 00047, 18 CDH 00029, subject to the conditions of approval included as attachments B1, B2, B3, and as revised in today's hearing. And I approve this project, case number 23 CDH 00014, subject to the conditions of approval included as attachments B4. Thank you very much for everyone to be here. Again, like I said, there's an appeal period and these issues will very likely be taken up on appeal. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schmuckel. Ms. Collins, Ms. Klug, thank you. Mr. Martin, I believe that concludes the hearing for today.
Thank you so much.